There's no doubt about it. The ultra wealthy are families here in America and across the world. What did they do to scale, and what do they do in real time to continue to be at the elite level that they are? We talked to an expert on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs, and if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
This episode is brought to you by LFS Chemistry. We are committed to being good stewards of the environment. We are providing the tools so you can be too. NAPE Expo, where deals happen. Air Compressor Solutions. When everything is on the line, Air Compressor Solutions is the dependable choice to keep commercial business powered up. Sandstone Group. Exec Crew. Elevate your network, elevate your knowledge. Texas Star Alliance. Pecos Country Operating. Fueling our future.
Hello, as always, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Crude Truth here at the Crude Truth Studios at the Real News office in the high rise of Dallas, Texas. And as always, with me is my co-host, Kristy. How are you?
I'm doing great today. How are you?
It has been a whirlwind of the last few weeks, but we've been doing great, and we have been, like I have better words, moving and doing.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Amazing.
Yeah.
A little bit of hair on fire, but all good.
Hey, you know what? We'll douse some water on that. We'll keep moving forward, right?
Yep, always.
Man, Kristy, one thing you and I have been doing now for almost a year, are traveling, visiting with other families, because we don't talk too much, but we are a family business.
Yes.
And we do want to scale over the next 5 years, which you and I have sat down numerous times to talk about. And so one thing we've been doing is traveling and visiting with other families and being in these groups of other families that are not only where we are, but where we want to go. And there's other groups that want to be where we are.
Yes.
It has been an amazing thing so far. What have your thoughts been so far?
I've loved it.
Yes.
Yes, loved it so much. Just the family dynamic and traveling and meeting amazing people. And, you have to be around people to get to where you want to go. And same people are following us to get where they want to go.
Right. And you always said it. You want to create a network of great and like-minded people, but being like-minded means also you got to have the same values and principles, not just we're going to make a lot of money.
No,
that's not what we're talking about.
No.
And so today we had a great opportunity. As I said, we've been traveling. One of the groups we've been going around and visiting is the Family Office Club. Yes.
I've thoroughly enjoyed those.
They have been awesome. And they hail out of Florida. I think it's Biscayne or the area. That's where their offices are. However, the CEO is coming in today, and he's coming in from his new homestead there in Hawaii. Our guest today is Richard Wilson. Richard, how are you?
Great. Appreciate you having me here today.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for coming on. When we had the opportunity, we changed schedules around a little bit to do this.
To do this, for sure.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. As our listeners and viewers just kind of heard, we talked about you just a hair. But for our listeners out there, I did my teaser about family offices, the ultra wealthy, us being a family office. Who's Richard Wilson, and what is the Family Office Club?
Sure. I started an investor club 17 years ago called Family Office Club. We've hosted 275 events. We have 7,500 registered investors with us. We have written 13 books. We have just put out our 1,000th YouTube video. We have 14.6 million social media group members and followers. So we're really an investor club, investor community, and we just put out tons of thought leadership into the space.
And that thought leadership also comes with that thought experience. I mean, you were a thought leader, and I'm going to use quotations, before thought leader was a thing. Again, you've been doing this for almost 20 years when investor groups and clubs were not really even a thing or mainstream, right?
Exactly.
And so I just think what you've been doing is awesome. And you truly cater to the investors that are out there looking for certain investments. But also you do cater to the guys that are looking for those investors. What has that been like in your journey to toggle that line between the two?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, it's a nuance of our business model running an investor club. What I've found is that by continually focusing on the needs of the investor and serving them, we'll always attract the people who are raising capital. So we're trying to raise the quality every year instead of raising the quantity. We've done 1,500 person conferences. We know exactly what that's like. But we're finding that having a 300 to 400 person event with 120 speakers on stage, there's massive connections, massive learning, and it's really about the quality and the genuine, authentic connections versus going for filling up a football stadium of 60,000 people. How many of those are going to be credible, well-established business founders? A little bit harder to pull that off, really high quality if it's really big. So I was trying to keep those couple of things in mind to be very investor focused.
So you mentioned obviously your speakers on the panel. I have thoroughly enjoyed those. I let him work the booth and I go and listen. How do you bring them on, determine you had the athletes, everything? How do you choose?
Sure. So what we try to do is have 70% plus of the speakers on stage. Like let's say we have 100 plus speakers, we'd want to have 70 plus of those be investors. We're looking for heads of other investor clubs, professional athletes, centimillionaires, billionaires, heads of large single family offices, heads of multifamily offices. And then we have angel investors and small private investors too. But I script every discussion panel question. And my theory there is that I don't want to be bored going to my own events. And after doing almost 300 of these, I'm just asking the questions that I'm curious about, and then I'm betting that other investors in the room would also want to ask those same questions. And then, of course, we open it up to the room for questions on almost every discussion panel as well. But it's very fast moving. We don't have any hour-long presentations on macroeconomics with a bunch of graphs and stats. We try to keep it super fast-paced.
So then also next question about the speakers. A lot of them have a story. Do you interview them before you bring them on stage? Because their story seems to obviously impact so many people that are in your audience.
Right. Like we had the founder of The Sound of Freedom, who's saved over 6,000 children, the founder of Keller Williams Real Estate, et cetera. E-Channel, billionaire founder, Larry was on stage. So many of the people we've done business with or we've gotten to know, and then we just found their story so fascinating. We thought our community would love to hear this story. So we're booking a billionaire. He's the only billionaire from Nepal, just agreed to speak at our December event. He's going to tell his story. Wow. And then we just contacted a centimillionaire today to maybe do a fireside chat at our October event. So really trying to find like the most exciting, interesting story possible, because our community, whether you're raising capital or you're an investor, you're probably an entrepreneur or a founder. We do have executives that are investors and some people that inherited money, but most of us are founders and wealth creators, and that's really the common thread.
Okay, and then what speaks to my heart, and you speak of it so tremendously, is relationships. People, I think every single one you talked about, it's not about this is what I'm offering. It's all about building relationships, and that's what creates this entity of doing business with people, because we're not just selling a product, you're selling yourself in a sense. And can you speak a little bit about that for me, please?
Sure. Yeah, I think investing is all about trust, is what I've learned the last 17 years. And anybody can put anything on a piece of paper, saying that your IRR is something, the payback period, your returns, your tax write-off, depreciation on an oil and gas asset, et cetera. Anyone can say something on a piece of paper. So all that really matters is, do you really trust the team to do what they promised to do? Do you really trust the people and like the people? Are they going to do the right thing when things get hard? That's what matters the most. If you're in the market to buy a Rolls Royce, when you're going to the Dallas Fort Worth airport and checking into your flagship check-in area, and then someone comes up and says, "Hey, I've got this Rolls Royce. Do you want to buy it?" You don't know who they are. And you say, "Oh, no, sorry, I'm over here trying to catch my flight." Even if you're literally looking for one. It's all about the context and the trust. And that's why meeting in person is so critical. So our goal is to become the #1 investor club globally that has in-person events for that very reason, to create relationships.
Do you think that more entrepreneurs or business owners need to know more about that relationship aspect?
Yeah, for sure. I think that figuring out the background of someone and how you could add value to them first. So many people come to an investor event and they're just looking to pitch. And like, oh, are you an investor? Let me pitch you. Are you an investor? Let me pitch you. And it's the wrong way to go about it because many people don't have the name tag of I'm an investor or the CIO for my own family office. They are a founder that owns a bunch of real estate. They're an entrepreneur that has many businesses and they're earning 7 figures a year in profits. So they are an investor, but they see themselves maybe as an entrepreneur or a founder. And if you just look at them like a piece of meat to invest in your fund, they're just going to turn off to that.
Sure.
You didn't take the time to get to know them. You didn't add value to them. And so they don't really want to hear your random pitch. They really want to, get to know people and trust them and see what expertise you have so that they can understand why they would want to hear any pitch, from your group.
You talk about getting to know people, and then you mentioned this is why I have events. Let's talk about your events. I mean, you've got them in Beverly Hills, New York City, and it's like in the nice places of New York City. Last year's was in Fort Lauderdale. This year you'll have one in Biscayne, Florida, if I said it right. Let's talk about your events and how they work, and and why you need why do you would like to invite other investors there and investees.
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So the main hubs who have been hosting events and historically has been like the Beverly Hills, New York, South Florida. So the next one is in Brooklyn, and then after that would be in Key Biscayne at the Ritz-Carlton. And so going forward, we're going to be hosting 4 events a year in Hawaii as well. I just relocated here with my family to access some of the investors we're working with in Asia a bit more easily. And then we're going to be expanding to Sydney and Singapore in 2025. And so the benefit of coming to our events is you get to meet investor peers. You get to hear from 100 investors and peers on stage at the investor summits. And you come away with maybe higher conviction on plans you already had, ideas around new niches. And since we're all founders, really, it's all about collecting what Charles Munger would say, your 100+ mental models, your lattice work of like strategies and models that you can see what somebody else did and now apply it to your niche or to your industry, and always be tinkering and upgrading what you're doing there. And that's been one of the top takeaways from studying the billionaires and the ultra wealthy, is that they're always voracious learners, sucking in information, and they want to be number one in the niche that they've identified. And you do that by out learning others in your niche and taking more action usually as well.
Well, I like that a lot. And I like that you're out learning. If you want to be number one, you're out learning your competitors and just studying your niche. I like that a lot. And, you talk about that you've been studying these ultra wealthy, the centimillionaires and the billionaires. Right now, you're on a mission to read over 200 autobiographies and biographies by billionaires. And I think that's something that's awesome, because when you look at a billionaire that writes a book, it's really like, why are they writing a book? They don't need to do it for the PR. They don't need to do it for a book deal. They're doing it to truly sit down and just write their thoughts down. And I think that's genius what you're doing. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So importantly, I'm not reading any books written about billionaires, only the books written by the billionaire themselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only 240 of those. I've read 95 of them so far. I usually go on a walk at sunrise and listen to the books. The one I'm listening to right now is this Charles Schwab book called Invested.
Okay.
And so I listen to it at 3.5x while I'm walking. And, you go on an hour and a half walk, and you got basically 4 hours of billionaire ideas into your brain. And I'm trying to identify the top 50 books out of 240, and then the top 12 out of those 50. So I can study those 12 and know them like the back of my hand, and just take 1 month out of a year to study the book like very deeply. But the reason I'm doing that is that the more I study from the ultra wealthy, the more that I find that's one of the like top 10 common threats is just that they're a voracious learner. And at a conference of 700 people, I said, raise your hand if you read 100+ books about business and strategy, and many hands went up. But I said, raise your hand if you've read more than 10 that were written by a billionaire, and only 1 or 2 hands went up in a room of 700 people, which means that most of us are reading books from people who are really good at marketing their books.
Yes.
They're not really good at
Yes.
business,
Yeah.
and that's a huge thing to keep in mind. Is like, I looked up a stat yesterday, 0.1% of people ever get their business to 5 million a year in revenue. That means that 99.9% of people that you talk to are not a business owner at the same level as you, and they're probably giving you advice. So you need to ignore most of it, you know?
Be
Well-
careful who you take advice from.
Yes, and I'll say this, since you said that, I always joke, and it's like, do you want to be a millionaire? And again, I know you've written books, sir, and you're on a different level, but it's like, you want to be a millionaire? You know, let me tell you how to write a book, you know, right? And it's like, you know, you get 1 million big people to buy it, you become a millionaire. And that's why I wanted to highlight what you're doing by, you know, reading these books written by the billionaires, because again, they don't need to do it. And they're just literally writing down their thoughts and unofficially sharing them with them, or sharing those thoughts. You know, either way they want to look at it. I mean, I think the one right now you're talking, reading with Charles Schwab has got to probably be probably one of your better ones. I would just assume by Charles Schwab and what he.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. He's super detailed in the book. So many good insights. I keep a little notepad app from Apple open, and then for every billionaire book, I put the title. And as I'm walking or listening to it and traveling, I'll jot down some shorthand notes to myself on what I took away from the book. It might be completely different than what someone else gets away from it. But I took 12 years to buy and negotiate the purchase of billionaires.com. And I'm also interviewing 100 billionaires publicly on stage and via audio messages and email, et cetera. So we interviewed Mark Cuban and Tony Robbins and Tim Draper and Grant Cardone, et cetera. And so we're really, before I used to go really deep with like Evan Pagan or Brian Tracy or Dan Sullivan and just go really, really deep with one mentor. And now I'm looking at it more of, why don't I learn from, you know, 200 plus billionaires who've written books and who will complete these interviews with me, you know?
Per your readings, have you found any similarities with them for like when you're taking notes, any like keywords thus far? Obviously, they're all billionaires. How did they get there? Anything that struggled with or anything on that day?
For sure, some commonalities. One is it's not work smart or hard. It's work harder at working smarter plus work harder than everyone else. You know, enjoy the work so you can work twice as hard and enjoy the process more. The other thing is to acquire strategic choke points and control distribution. Many times, the person who is most innovative and gets traction and gets the network effect, or has the most superior distribution, has a really great chance of winning. And also, sometimes people comment like, "Oh, didn't the billionaires just all get lucky, or they like inherited a bunch of money and then got lucky, basically?" And it's really not true with almost all of them. They are self-made. They started out from the beginning with the plan to open 1,000 Home Depots. Nobody wanted to fund them. They almost went bankrupt many times. And now they have 1,000 plus Home Depots and they're billionaires. And so persistence, grit, innovation. And the last thing I'd say, which comes up again and again, is that they are so anti-herd, it upsets them when people say, "Oh yeah, that's the way everyone does it." They're like, "Good, we're for sure not doing it that way." "Oh, you don't like my idea because it's crazy and it's not possible? Let's lean forward on that idea." Because you try to copy what everyone else is doing, at best, you're going to be copying the average.
Yes.
And so you're not going to be ultra successful if you're doing what everyone else is doing the right way that everyone accepts.
That's super powerful. Be different. That's my motto. I don't want to be like anybody else.
Yeah, no, well, you know, I don't know if you,
No.
we are definitely a different duo here, and but we like to stick out, and it's like what is working for us, and how do we? I like that. You know, we definitely believe in work hard, work smart, but also, you know, we talk about it all the time. It's like, do you enjoy what you do? You know, waking up every morning and enjoying what you do for a living and your career. And, you know, there isn't a true work-life 50-50. It's all together, and it's meshed together, you know. So I like that a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that one thing I found is that billionaires, they have to be supportive and giving and generous to their employees, or they wouldn't keep the employees or their partners, of course. And so the best sales pitch you can make to somebody is really the life you've lived the last 10 years and how aligned your values are kind of with their values and your mindset with their mindset. And so that's one reason I moved out to Hawaii, is it's ranked the #1 healthiest state. It's ranked the #1 happiest state. And, you know, the price of an average house here, you could buy 20 Lamborghinis, but I don't own a supercar, you know, where I would instead rather give my kids and myself the gift of living in an outdoor adventure location and having access to the Asian markets, which are exploding in wealth. And so I think like being true to your own family values and then finding investors and like-minded people that are founders just like you is a key to connecting and making relationships with investors.
Values are everything, and you are who you associate with, no matter what that is that you want to be, or period,
sure.
personal life or business. So,
You know, as you've studied, and I think that's a great way to segue into something else I wanted to talk with you about, is that here you've been studying these books, and you are now sharing that knowledge. You have your own mastermind group. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, we have our investor club has just two types of events. We have our investor summits, and those are, 300 to 700 people and 100 plus speakers on stage. And then we have our 1-day masterminds. So instead of a 2 or 3 day investor summit, it's just 1 day, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the masterminds invites in investors and our charter members who are raising capital. And then what we'll do is just have like 3 or 4 guest speakers, and then I'll present for half of the day on everything I've learned the last 17 years related to a niche topic. And so this last month, we had somebody who's raised over $4 billion in his career on stage. We had a undefeated UFC fighter who now has 11 private schools on stage. We had $1 billion plus family office manager on stage, et cetera. And so we'll have some really interesting keynotes and fireside chats, but then we'll also go through like 30 strategies that we've learned from studying Billionaires, and just kind of share insights rapid fire throughout the day as well.
Wow. The mastermind, what made you want to do that? And, how has that kind of changed and evolved to help out your family office club?
Sure. Yeah. I think that what we found is that putting on a big investor summit takes a lot of time to book 100 speakers, et cetera. And I feel like people join for the investor summits typically. That's like 80% of their motivation. But at the masterminds, I get to share everything we've learned. And in people's minds, when they're raising capital, they think, I need to go fishing. I need to find a fish, which is the investor in their mind. Where are their fish? Can you help connect me to a fish? Can you be an introducer to fish for me? But really, at the masterminds, I'm telling them like where they can fish, how to add value to the fish up front, like what bait to use in a good way to genuinely add value to people at such a level that they want to invest with you because they genuinely like you and know you and trust you now. And teaching somebody how to work with investors and teaching investors how to start their family office and operate and invest better and all of that is really fun to do because I know that's the biggest impact. Even though at the investor summits, you get to learn from tons of speakers on stage, it's at the masterminds that you get the most knowledge for 1 day of your time investment related to everything we've learned by running our investor club. While the investor summit, you're getting knowledge from 120 different speakers on all different niches and all different strategies. So it's a very different experience, and it kind of they mesh together well so that somebody gets how to navigate investor clubs and investors, or how to be a better investor if they're on that side of the fence, and how to source better deals, et cetera.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a heck of a 8-hour little stance right there. I tell you what, man, that's a lot that goes on in that jam-packed 8 hours. That's what I was looking for. Jam-packed 8 hours.
Yeah, for sure. I think the one thing for investors listening here is that I found if you can position yourself as an investor so that you get to see deals first, you get to see deals exclusively, and you get to see deals at a better valuation than everybody else, then your balance sheet is really going to scale. And most people don't spend time positioning themselves to see deals first or exclusively or at a better valuation. But if you've had an exit or you're making 7 figures a year, there's someone in your industry that wants to be you when they grow up, and you're further down the path. So if you are not just a checkbook, but you're also a think tank, an advisory board member, you can help them get access to distribution or clients or strategies to scale, then you should be able to invest at a better valuation and play offense and defense on that investment. And then you should be able to do what I said and get into deals first at better valuations. And so that's just a simple concept and just an example of how we try to add value to investors with those types of ideas.
Talk about enhancing your legacy for your family.
Yes. Wow. I mean, that's you're enhancing for that legacy all day long. And I see why this organization has only continued to grow for the last almost 20 years there. Richard, holy cow. I mean, Is there a time that you're not thinking about the Family Office Club? And, I mean, you said you get to go on a walk every morning. Is that about it? Holy cow.
I mean, I've got 3 daughters and a wife here. So one reason we wanted to live in Hawaii is that the weather kind of draws you outside year round to do fun activities. So we go kayaking, and I don't work on the weekends. I don't do dinners ever. And so if I'm in town and stuff, I might work before my kids wake up on the weekend and work from like 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. or 5 to 8 a.m. But then once they're awake, I'm done. And so importantly, weekend days and weekday nights, I don't work at all. Obviously, like every founder, you sometimes end up thinking about business a little bit, of course. And I like explaining to my kids what contracts I'm negotiating, what we're doing in the business, who we fired, who we hired. All that type of stuff is good for the kids to learn about business as they grow up. But I just finished reading this 700-page book that's Warren Buffett's annual shareholder letters over 50 years. And at the very last part of the book, they explained something that made a ton of sense to me. They said, while other people are hired gun CEOs for their conglomerates and their big companies, and they come and go every 3 to 5 or 7 or 10 years, Warren Buffett's been doing this for 40, 50 years. Munger was as well till he passed away. And to be able to do it over many decades is a huge competitive edge. There's so many nuances you learn over time and that you can draw upon. And, somebody else can hire some cubicle jockey to compete against you, but they're going to be gone and you'll still be there, learning and innovating. So I think that's the edge that we're looking for long-term as well, just like Warren over time.
I like how you say that you sit there and you talk with your family, with your daughters about what's going on. I think that's something that is so key. And I think it goes back to the community standpoint and also just the family. And, you're teaching them how to fish. Like you say, it's like, hey, here's what I did today. Here's how these things went. Here's these negotiations. So I think that is very powerful. And it's something that we're not teaching our kids anymore.
No, that's lacking.
Right.
The whole relationship dynamic. You need that with family. It's not personal, it's intimate, the connection, teaching them, you mentioned healthy in Hawaii. So is there any way that you keep your mindset like on point? On point,
Yeah.
like ground yourself, or any key points that you could like share with somebody?
Yeah, sure. We have a few different ways that we do that. One thing is starting out in the morning, with the walk and the sunrise, and then starting out with billionaire ideas going in my brain. And then also I've got a 1-pager that I read each day, and it has my monthly, quarterly, annual goals. It also, on top of that, has my kind of one-liner statements, which are kind of like mental models I operate off of. Like, I know if I do those things, like Bruce Lee said that calm is a superpower, for example. And so I know that if I operate based on those things and those reminders, that I will, do better in the world. And that really helps my state. And I think that Tony Robbins said, most of us go through the world looking for strategies, and we think we're one strategy off perhaps from being more successful. But he says, we've collected so many strategies, most are just going to make us go half a mile per hour faster. And really what we need to do is manage our mental states and be in a peak mental state. And then that will make people want to work with you more, and that will get you more results. But these are the values of our family. And it's healthy, bold, brave, clean, cheerful, kind, kaizen, grit, responsible, respectful, high integrity. And having those on the wall at our house and just making sure our kids are kind of punished and rewarded based on those is something I think is important for kind of the mental state of our family.
Richard, that list right there reminds me of, I'm kind of old school, and I remember Boy Scouts of America, and I am an Eagle Scout from a long time ago. So that list that you have reminds me of the Scout Law, which was the Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. I think that was 12. And there was 12. I remember that. And I like that right there. And just on a personal note, I don't know if my son will do Boy Scouts because it's changed dramatically over the last 10 years.
Sure.
But to have it as a family core value, I think that's genius. And for you to share, hey, I got my monthly, quarterly, and annual goals, and I do that every day. thank you for sharing that. I mean, that was powerful right there. And so thank you for giving us a little, in my opinion, two people that have gotten to meet you a couple times, an insight into your life. That is
personal life.
Yeah, personal life. Yeah.
And it's very powerful that you said that that's hanging up in your house, because I think that so many people don't, you got it.
It is. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's my dad. That's my dad. He was our Cub master.
That's on yours too. Oh, I see it.
Wet at that age, and when I was, it looks like I was a Star Scout. Maybe I can't see it there, but yeah, I was an Eagle Scout as well, and so was my dad. So I could definitely, that's where I got the values idea from, actually.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
I just got chills.
Well, tell me, you've been reading books, and let me rephrase that. You have been studying Billionaires for the last year and a half now. Is that correct? You've been doing that?
Yeah. Yep. So, about 2 years. Yep.
So what are some of the best books that you recommend so far?
Right. Yeah. So the Warren Buffett collection of annual shareholder letters was definitely one of them. So I'll share my screen here. The bottom of this visual here, that yellow book, that's the Warren Buffett book. It's amazing. You have to get that on Amazon. They don't have it on Audible. Most of these other books you can get on Audible. And about 130 out of the 240 billionaire books are on Audible. But How to Win by Mark Cuban is great. Tim and Fertitta's Shut Up and Listen book is awesome. They're very quick reads. If you need a book for a next gen, or you want to knock out a couple quick ones, those are very easy to digest. But I loved What It Takes by Steve Schwarzman, the founder of Blackstone, in the bottom left-hand corner. And these are some of my favorites. It's a good variety mix of billionaire books, just to kind of get people started if they need a couple of ideas on where they might want to invest their time on just reading 20 at least, if you're not going to read all 240, because I realize most people are not going to do that maybe.
But you did mention that you listened to it on 3X. So I remember somebody talking about that at Family Office when we were there. So how you can read and faster and get through. Can you explain that a little bit so I can understand?
Yeah. So it depends on who's reading the book, but like with the Charles Schwab book, I'm listening to it at 3.5x. Okay. And every now and then, like so far, I'm 70% of the way through the book, and 2 different times I'm walking, and then he says something and he really emphasizes how critical it was, or I didn't quite get it because it was at 3.5x. And I'll be like, all right, let me rewind that. And I'll have to go back a couple of times per book. And some people read into the Audible app. It's recorded at a faster speed. So sometimes I have to listen at 2.7 or 2.5. But the main point is that, it just speeds up the whole process, and you can use it when you're, walking through the airport, when you're exercising, when you're going to bed, et cetera. And so that really helps make it practical to get through the 240 books. Because otherwise, some people might be happy if they read 20 books a year. So what are you going to do? Take 12 years to read all the books from Billionaires? I mean, it would just be too lengthy of a time. I want all the benefits faster. I'm impatient with that. And so I want to quickly get through all 240, and then we'll narrow it down to the top 50, et cetera.
Isn't there a science behind reading it at that level as well?
I do think most founders are on the spectrum for ADD, and they're quick moving, they're idea people. And if something is moving slow, that's why our conferences are fast moving, then you're just going to end up like checking your X app or Facebook or your email and, seeing what crazy stuff happened in the geopolitical world or something, right? And so it helps keep your attention for sure when things are fast moving. Keeps it more interesting for sure.
Wow.
I knew that about the spectrum, which I think is so amazing.
Wow. I like that. I wonder, because like the fast paced ideas.
Most CEOs and founders are on the spectrum because they live outside normal. Yeah. Their thought process. It's really cool. Powerful.
Man, I'm always learning something new, Richard. I love it. Richard, I know we have just, I want to do this again, sir. I mean, maybe we can try to discuss doing something at one of the shows. But this has been awesome to do, and have you take your time, sir. So thank you very, very much. Something fun we've been doing here on our most recent episodes is kind of doing some quick questions. One of them we already know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What book are you reading right now?
Charles Schwab, Invested.
Are you streaming anything right now?
I'm not streaming anything right now, but I've gone through about 15 pro athlete documentaries lately. We're interviewing a bunch of pro athletes. Like we interviewed Mike Tyson. We have NFL and NBA players on stage at each of our events, et cetera. And, documentaries like Breakpoint on tennis or Drive to Survive or the Tour de France second season just came out, and just seeing the commonality of the mindset that's needed. At the top of the mindset is what separates everybody.
Now, the second time you had your PowerPoint on, I did kind of take a good look at the slides on the side, and I noticed you had Michael Jordan. Did you watch The Last Dance?
Yeah, I've watched that twice.
Okay.
Love it. I love the McGregor documentary on Amazon, the old school one that shows him in his mom's house, telling everybody he's going to be number one. And then McGregor forever was good. And then the documentary on Arnold on Netflix is pure gold.
Okay.
I just absolutely love it because he's all about having a crystal clear vision and then working twice as hard and enjoying it 10 times as much as everyone else,
Okay. Man, streaming, books.
Favorite restaurant.
Do you have a favorite restaurant already in Hawaii?
We do. It's called Paella, and it's based here in Kailua. We're in a little town called Kailua, which is about 25 minutes from Honolulu. So definitely recommend that. Or if you're an acai bowl fan, there's a place called Nalu, Nalu, that has the best acai on the island. So if you're coming out here to Oahu, check those out.
Well, I can't wait for the Family Office Club in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite sports team?
I do not actually. To be perfectly honest, when I watch sports, I get frustrated that I didn't figure out how to navigate my life to get paid to play a sport. And I'd like to play sports, pick up basketball, pick up soccer. I played water polo in college and did some crew and swam state competitive in high school. But I don't watch a lot of sports. But the recent documentaries called Quarterback and Receiver on Netflix were, again, fascinating to see the mental mindset of it all. But to sit around and watch someone else having fun and getting paid to have fun, I'd rather play a game than watch someone else play.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, no, she is. Well, Richard, for individuals that are, for investors or people that are looking to raise capital, how can they get a hold of you and your team at Family Office Club?
Yeah, I'll rattle off a couple quick ways because some might be more appealing than others for people and on what you would like to use. But we have a free book, a PDF book on capital raising. You go to capitalraising.com. If you're an investor, best thing to do is to go register 30 seconds at investorclub.com. If you'd like to check out our event schedule and potentially join our investor club and come to our in-person events to connect with investors, then go to our main website, which is familyoffices.com. You'll see our upcoming calendar for the next year, et cetera. And our whole business model, just like you doing this podcast, is like the more that you give away and add value to tens of thousands of people, the more that thousands of people want to work with you who got value from that. And so we've got a Family Office podcast with 1,000 episodes. We've got 1,000 videos on our YouTube channel. And don't miss, on our YouTube channel under playlists, we have a number of mini series. And that's probably, besides Sense of Millionaire and Billionaire interviews, the mini series is a ridiculously high value to give away for free. So I definitely encourage you to check that out, because the more value you get from that, the more that you're going to see that we're genuine, and then you can profit from our ideas before ever meeting us or working with us at all.
Wow. Well, again, Richard, I cannot thank you enough for doing this. I'd love to have you come back on and maybe talk about where we see family, because we really didn't even talk about, the family office aspect of where they're going, or what they're up to. So I'm excited to leave that for our listeners, say, hey, we're going to do this again. And we'll dive into more of that today. I was really just happy to talk about you and talk about Family Office today.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Sure.
Yeah. So
appreciate it. Yeah. Happy to come back anytime.
Okay. And we look forward to seeing you here in October and December as well.
Yep. Sounds great. Look forward to seeing you there at the events. They should be exciting like always. So appreciate you being part of the community.
Thank you. We love it. Thank you so much for what you do.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
And to all of us out there, thank you as always for tuning in to another episode of The Crude Truth.
Again, the Crude Truth would like to thank today's sponsors: LFS Chemistry, NAPE Expo, Air Compressor Solutions, Sandstone Group, Exec Crew, Texas Star Alliance, Pecos Country Operating, and Real News Communication Network.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.